Remember when I told you that you shouldn't accept a counteroffer from your current employer? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you a real life example of why. Hey everybody, it's Brian from A Life After Layoff, and today I want to talk to you more about counteroffers and why you should maybe think twice about accepting one. Now, if you've seen my previous video, you know exactly how I feel about counteroffers, and it's a little asterisk to the other video. If I was a headhunter and I was going to get paid on placement for that new opportunity, probably would care if you accepted my offer. But as a career coach, I'm looking out for your best interest, and I've seen too many circumstances where people have accepted a counter and it didn't work out very well. But before we get into that, if you're interested in more job search and career related tips just like this directly from a corporate recruiter, make sure you hit the subscribe button. You might also want to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future content. So I was perusing Reddit like I often do, and I came across a post about somebody who had experienced a counteroffer from their employer and they were wondering, what should I do about it? So I started reading through it and I'm kind of shaking my head going, yeah, So I thought this would be a really good opportunity to solidify some of the points that I made in my previous video. So let's take a look at the scenario. Okay, so the posting says, I've accepted a job offer and put my notice in at my current company. Suddenly, all the big plans that they had for me surfaced, and they say, what can we do to keep you? What's the best course of action to navigate? In short, I was offered a 30% pay bump by a non-competing company to do similar work to what I do for this company, but expanding upon it. So first things first, it's a lateral move to a non-competing company. 30% pay bump is great. We like to see that. So either the person stayed in their current role too long or they were underpaid to begin with, because if the market rate is 30% above, I mean, oftentimes a company will give you a bump, but they're not going to go 30% above. So that I suspect that this person was underpaid to begin with. So that's why it's always worth checking the open market occasionally. You might also want to take an interview or two just to keep things honest. But the key here is expanding upon it, which means that they're going to get more experience, hopefully get a better resume as a result. You don't want to just jump for a similar rate of pay for the same level of experience with the same job title, because it's going to weaken your resume. So this looks like a great opportunity just from the limited amount of information we have here. So they accepted it. I have no intention of using this pay bump to seek a counteroffer. All good there. My gut says that this is the best course of action. So that's key here. My gut tells me that this is the best course of action. That's usually a great indicator. If you're ever on the fence about something, trust your gut. Your gut is almost always going to lead you in the right direction. So upon letting my boss know, he asked me the question of how do I get you to stay? And of course, that's always a great feeling to know that your boss liked you and wants you to stay. But I let him know that it would probably be unreasonable, and I made the commitment anyway. The former boss, who was still his mentor, didn't give me that, but when he was informed of leadership, suddenly there's these plans. So the boss 2 layers up suddenly has all these plans for this person. And basically the plan was to hire 4 to 5 new people and put them on a team under me. And isn't that interesting how that always happens after you tender your resignation, where suddenly they can't live without you. They had all these plans and you just need to wait a little bit longer. This is the proverbial carrot that is always dangled in front of people. This is probably the most common trap that I see. People stay in jobs too long because there's always this promise of something that's going to be just out of reach in the future. So this person at least recognizes that and says talk is cheap, and plans, especially with this company, come to fruition slowly. Even if I said, okay, sounds good, it would have to be in writing and would have to be accompanied by a solid pay bump. So even just getting you up to the same rate of pay that the new company is offering, or even giving you a slight bump above that, shouldn't be enough to move the needle for you, because the company that you're currently working for is not seeing the potential in you or has taken you for granted, whereas the new company is seeing the potential in you. It sounds to me like this company was not prepared. You caught them off guard. They probably didn't think that you were going to leave or ever tender your resignation. They probably thought you was the steady Eddie who would never disrupt the apple cart, so to speak. So then he said, my question, Monday is likely going to be very uncomfortable. I'm likely to get visits by several VPs, our COO, and our chief CEO, our president. So basically the entire organization seems like they're going to come to this person. How do I navigate these conversations? I mean, here's the deal. You're in complete control here. You already have an acceptable offer that you honestly shouldn't even be considering their counter with. But when you're in the driver's seat, you don't handle the conversations any kind of way. You let them come to you and say what they got to say, and you're completely in control here. And if it's me, I'll hear them out. I'll kind of run through their scenario with them and, let them tell me what they want to offer. I'm keeping my lips very closed as far as what the opportunity is, how much I'm getting paid, what the company is that I'm going to. I'm not disclosing anything, including even the job titles or anything, because I have seen companies go and torpedo you behind the scenes. As shady as that sounds, I've actually seen that happen before, where the employer will go to the new employer because they know them somehow, and then they'll kind of mess with things behind the scenes. So in other words, you want to keep things as close to the vest as you can. You don't want to say anything in these meetings other than hearing what opportunity they have to offer. So my plan is to hear them out, tell them that this was not me leaving due to an issue, but really being pulled by an opportunity. I'm wondering if this is a recruiter contacting this person versus them looking, because if they were looking for the opportunity, that might be, it certainly is an indicator of their interest in wanting to leave or being dissatisfied on some level. If they were completely apathetic and some recruiter just happened to fall in their lap, then, it might be a little different. But in general, we don't accept opportunities from outside recruiters if we're completely satisfied with what we're doing. So anyway, I plan on sticking with I want to honor my commitment to the offer accepted. And is that good? That's actually perfect to what you should say. You're going to say nothing. You'll hear them out, but you're not going to give any details. If they throw a number out there that's well above the new job, should I consider accepting or denying it? Now, this is where it gets a little bit sticky. If they throw out some ridiculous number to get you to sign on the dotted line, you have to use your best judgment here. I would really want to see a job title. If it unlocks an entirely new vertical for me, I would want to see the new responsibilities. I would want to see a job description. I would want to know what the pay range or the pay grade is. I would want to see all those things documented. I want to see them from the human resource department, not just the boss, not just the boss's boss. I would want to see an offer letter with all of this stuff and detailed in it. I'd want to see a job description and make sure that that is clearly committed. And I want to see the offer letter with that all written into it. But unless it comes with a new job title and probably a new level, I would be very reluctant to accept the job offer for the current company, because now you're just a more expensive version of the same you. So in other words, if there's a layoff or something like that in the future, you might expect to have your name circled on a list because you'll probably be the most expensive person in the department. Furthermore, they may look at you as a flight risk now because you played that card. So just keep that in mind as well when you're making this decision. I realize that accepting a counteroffer means there's a target on my back anytime I mess up. So here we go. We're paying him more now and he can't even do X, Y, Z. So yeah, absolutely. That's 100% correct. Is now they're going to be a higher level of expectation. Even if you take on a different job there, they're going to look at you with a higher level of expectation, and there could be a target on your back if you're not performing. The hiring process for this new company goes back to May. I'm just going to assume a few weeks. And when I was first contacted by the recruiter. Okay, so the recruiter contacted them. What's the protocol for reneging on an offer like this if my current employer gives me a really sweet deal in writing? So they signed and accepted this new job offer. I mean, here's the deal. You have no obligation, even after you sign an offer letter, you have no obligation to start. I know it kind of sounds shady, but you have to do what's best for you. So if you really do determine that this new job offer, the counter, is in your best interest, you just call up the new recruiter and you say, hey, unfortunately, I have some bad news. I'm not going to be able to move forward with the offer after all. And I was offered a counteroffer, and I'm deciding to stick with my current employer. And the new recruiter will probably be pretty pissed off, but we're all free agents in this job market. So, that kind of is as far as that goes. They'll be upset for a day or two, and they'll get back to recruiting, and they'll go back and look for another candidate. But at the end of the day, you have to look out again for yourself because we have to act like the CEO of our career. So if my new employer does offer a generous pay bump, other thought in my head is going like, oh, cool, but I wasn't worth it last week, and suddenly I have one foot out the door and now I'm worth it. That's absolutely the truth. I mean, you got to, on some level, you got to think, were they taking you for granted? Were they underpaying you and just not feeling like you were worth the money, and suddenly you're leaving and they were caught off guard and they're just trying to buy some time? I mean, these are all things that I have seen happen in the past, where once they get all their ducks in a row, there's a layoff 6 or 8 months later and your name's popped up on a list. That could be one of the reasons why is, they bought themselves a little bit more time. But nonetheless, you got to ask the question of, why wasn't I recognized before? It only took me tendering my resignation to head out the door. It's like same thing with relationships. It's like sometimes people don't know what they have until it's gone. And this sounds like the exact same thing that this employer is dealing with. The second to last thing, given that the wheel turns very slowly at my current company and many of the 1-year goals in my role in my current company would dramatically put them in a good spot, would it be a bad idea to stay in touch with them as a possible plan to go back to this enhanced leadership role if it comes to fruition? So in other words, like kind of keeping 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I mean, you should never burn a bridge. So, sure, it makes sense to do that. And if they're not ready to give you the job title, maybe you say, hey, I'm going to leave for this other job opportunity. And when you're ready to move forward with the leadership position, feel free to reach back out to me and I'll make a decision at that point in time. And then I would make sure that they know that I would expect to have my seniority honored if I were to leave and you were to consider me for this role. So that'll really show you how serious they are about you if in 6 months, 8 months, a year later, they call you and they try to re-recruit you. So that's actually not a bad strategy. Finally, while this, like any job, has its issues, I feel like 2 pop out, even though I've said earlier there was nothing internal driving me out. Should I share them or should it just give them ammo to like, oh, we can fix that? Is it even worth entertaining them fixing this, or even if they could provide it in writing? I mean, it really all just depends on what those things are, if there really are deal breakers. I probably just would keep my mouth shut and not say anything. And if I was sincere about listening to a counteroffer, these are things that I would probably want to get addressed. So absolutely, if you aren't sincere, but if you've already made up your mind, you're leaving the organization anyway, then I think it's probably a moot point. Issue 1 is that I don't think that they're getting my best quality work anymore. I would not recommend that you say that. I would not recommend that you say anything about that. Maybe it's because I'm distracted by a billion things going on in my life. He's got all kinds of stuff. Or maybe it's because I'm not being challenged. I would not recommend that you say that. Issue number 2, I believe them when they say they really do have plans for me to be a leader in the company on a VIP or even C-suite level. I know that any real progress will take longer than 5 years in all likelihood, unless there's a vacuum left by resignations. Do I mention that I fear career advancement at this company is too slow? You should have a career plan anyway. And in this case, absolutely, I would want to know what their career plan would be for me. It should be in writing. They should have a career program already set up. Here's the deal. If you're in a position like this where they have targeted you for VP, C-suite level, any of these senior levels, and you're getting into like the executive C-suite level, you should absolutely already be on their succession planning program. They will have people already targeted. They're already giving them development. You will know. You'll be invited into these meetings. You'll go through. You'll have development plans. You'll be probably part of a special group that will be getting extra mentoring. They may even send you back to school for certain things. At least any respectable company does these. These are very common in industry. So if you're not in any part of these programs, or if you know that the program exists, but you're not a part of it, then that's another big indicator that you were not part of their true C-suite aspirations. And look around your company and see how often, when there's one of these roles comes open, how often do they go to market for the job? Do they fill it internally? If people in your peer group are getting these opportunities to get promoted, then that might be an indicator that maybe there is some legs to this. But I'd want to see those 2 things before I made any commitment or made this a reason why I might stick with it. And when we look at the concept of behavior-based interviewing, your past performance is the best indicator of your future performance. The same thing can be said for your company or your boss. Their past performance is the best indicator of their future performance. How do they treat people in the past? How have they treated you in the past? Because that's going to be the best indicator of how they'll treat you going forward. The benefit you have of working for the current company and getting the counter is you know exactly how they've treated people in the past. You know exactly how you've been treated in the past. So you can use it as a litmus test. And that's the danger of going to a new company, is you don't know those things. So it's more of a gamble in that regard. But nonetheless, in this case, we know exactly how they have treated us in the past, so we can make a better educated decision based on that. And sure enough, there was an update to this, and in edit, like half of you didn't read the title alone, let any part of the post, meaning that there's an update telling me that I should not take the counter, shaking my head. This is why you don't take advice from strangers on the internet. Only weigh and consider their offered perspective. That's true and probably goes for me as well. You should only weigh and consider my offered perspective. Someone just wants to give their input, but not everybody wants to read. Okay, so let's get down to the long and the short of it. Here goes. In short, I'm not taking the counter. Okay, Glad to hear that. As anticipated, the COO, the president, and a few of my VPs and boss called me in and chatted with me. The president was mostly concerned that there was a systematic problem at the company. Okay, it's probably a good thing to keep a pulse of. It's usually what exit interviews are for, though. I don't know why they needed to meet with you, but nonetheless, hey, at least they're taking a proactive step there. The company has some issues, but nothing specifically made me leave. There were some headaches, sure. I mean, every company has headaches. So, and here's the thing: the grass isn't always greener. In fact, the new company probably has a lot of issues. In fact, the job that you're probably interviewing for and you're taking probably was vacated by somebody who was pissed off about the job before you got there. So, something to think about when you're interviewing for that next role. But it says, I was pretty disappointed. If I think that there are workplaces without headaches, I simply saw an opportunity and took it. And hey, that's a lot of the opportunities that come our way. That's what happens. We see a great opportunity, we take it. And as long as we know what we're doing, we have a strategy in place, then you should be de-risking your opportunities, your jumps. We should be making sure that we know exactly what we're doing. But this is how you do it. The VP and my boss mainly wanted to hear what I was going to do. I was as vague as I could be. Even the tiny bits that I did divulge, I'm going into data engineering, was met with, we can get you opportunities to do that here. Again, it's the dangling carrot. My former boss was probably the only one who was understanding. He's a huge champion of the company, so I expect him to be more upset, but he understands that you need to do what's best for yourself. So the boss actually seems like a pretty decent person. The COO came to me with a counter, and honestly, it's what sealed the deal for me leaving. Because usually the people who are at these executive levels are usually so out of touch with what's going on at 2 or 3 layers down. They operate at a level that's just not based in reality. I'm just gonna say it. He brought in IT who were thrilled to have me join their team as a data engineer. So I don't even have, potentially join their team as a data engineer. I don't even have a job, it sounds like. Again, my mistake for divulging too much. It's like, it just seems so insincere. But they didn't even, I guarantee you they didn't even have a job. They're like going to make one up. He agreed to exceed the offer. And here's where I wouldn't play that card. I would not tell them what the other job offer was. Let them tell you what they think you're worth. Put it on them. If they really feel that you're worth this, tell them that the offer was very competitive, and let's see what they come back with, and that'll give you a really good litmus test for your value to them. He framed everything in the we can use you perspective, not in a we would like to help you grow your career perspective. And that's a really good call out. The company is looking at it from their perspective only, which is an indicator that they're not looking at it from your perspective. Yes, he sees me in leadership, and I believe him based on my experience in the company, but I also know if that wheel turns that slowly, it would probably be 5 years that I see it come to fruition, if and only if somebody dies or retires. And honestly, especially in smaller companies, that's a huge problem. People who get into these cushy jobs making huge bonuses and big salaries, and let's face it, the ones that I've seen have not worked all that hard for it, especially when we've got into those roles. That's typically what happens. You have to wait till somebody retires or gets forced out. And let's face it, 5 years is probably not even a realistic outlook on that. It was clear that even though he took his sweet time coming up with a plan, he didn't have a good plan to begin with. This is obvious that they were completely caught off guard here and probably didn't even have a job time. I mean, this IT group coming in and trying to schmooze them with this idea of joining as a data engineer. Clearly, they're not giving him the promotional title either. It's as a data engineer. So these are all red flags. Clearly, this person understands exactly why you don't accept a counteroffer, because nothing changes with your existing company. So he summarizes by saying he's intending to accept the other offer and move on. So I think this is a very good summary of why we don't accept the counteroffer in real life. Now, I want to put another asterisk here and say, like everything in life, nothing is a 100%er. So there's going to be that one circumstance where accepting a counteroffer may actually be in your best interest, but you have to trust your gut, use your intuition, and know what the situation is. Anyway, if you're sitting there thinking, gosh, it would be nice to get an offer to begin with so I could have a counteroffer, that's exactly what I specialize in. I've got a website called alifeafterlayoff.com, and it's loaded with insider recruiting tips and tricks. And I also share my deepest and most intimate knowledge in the form of some training courses. And the first one's called Resume Rocketfuel, which is designed to teach you exactly how to write a resume that's going to give you the best chance at getting those corporate recruiters to take notice of you so they can get you into that first round interview. And once you get that phone to start ringing, then it's up to you to market yourself throughout the rest of the interview process. And that's where the ultimate Job Seeker Bootcamp comes in. We take you through each round of the interview process, give you tips, techniques, and tricks in order to get through that interview and ultimately get to the offer. And of course, we teach you how to negotiate the best possible terms so that your current company gets really jealous and wants to counteroffer you, but we're not going to accept it. But if you want to skip the recruiter altogether, that's the preferable method. And trust me, it's a lot easier to get hired when you don't have to go through the corporate recruiting process and you can skip right to the front of the line. And that's where unlocking LinkedIn comes in. You have to use targeted networking to your advantage if you want to truly master your job search. And if you have a situation that you're dealing with, if you want some more individualized help, I do offer some limited private one-on-one coaching. You can reach me through my website for that. Anyway, hopefully this video helped shed some light and was a little bit helpful. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next one.